"You're like a brother to me," she said for months. Then I introduced her to my new girlfriend. She yelled, "You're an opportunistic jerk. You should try harder to get me." What she did next made me go nuclear. Hey Reddit, there's this thing people do when they want to keep you close but not too close. They give you a title. Something that sounds important but actually translates to, I need you available but not interested. Brother. Best friend. Ride or die. Pick your favorite emotional participation trophy. I, 28 male, live in Columbus, Ohio, and I spent 10 months learning that being someone's brother means you get all the responsibilities of a relationship with none of the benefits. It's like being an unpaid intern for someone's emotional stability. I install and inspect fire suppression systems in commercial buildings. My work logs and building sign-ins track me all day. Badge in, badge out, GPS on the work truck. That becomes important later. I met Allie at a mutual friend's cookout last March. Will, who I'd known since high school. I was standing by the grill arguing about whether the Bengals would ever win a Super Bowl when she walked up. The Bengals already won in 2022, she said, stealing a chip off my plate. They lost the Super Bowl in 2022, I corrected. Close doesn't count. In Ohio, close absolutely counts. It's basically a state motto. Brown hair, confident smile, the kind of energy that made you pay attention. I'm Allie, Keegan, and that was it. The beginning of 10 months of getting played while thinking I was being a good guy. We exchanged numbers, started texting that night. Within a week, we were texting multiple times a day, coffee runs that turned into 3-hour conversations, movie nights at her apartment. I helped her pick out furniture, drove her to pick up her car from the shop. Normal friend stuff that felt like more when I was in the middle of it. I was into her almost immediately, and I wasn't stupid about it. So after about 3 weeks, I tested the waters. We were on her couch watching some true crime documentary when I said, "So, random question. You seeing anyone?" She turned to me with this expression I now recognize as the one people make when they're about to friend zone you so hard your grandchildren will feel it. "I'm not dating you, but you're not going anywhere. Don't get ambitious. You're my person." Not like that. There it was. The title. The Invisible Fence. Brother, I should have walked away then. I stayed. Because I figured maybe she just needed time. Maybe. 10 months of maybes. Every single one of them was wrong. Allie worked in medical billing at a hospital network downtown. Stressed constantly. She'd call me at random hours to vent, sometimes multiple times a day. I listened every time. That's what brothers do, right? I helped her move apartments when her lease ended in June. Showed up with my pickup truck and spent 8 hours hauling furniture up 3 flights of stairs in 90-degree heat. Threw out my back for a week. She bought me pizza afterward and said, "You're the most reliable person in my life." Reliable. Another word that sounds like a compliment but actually means, I know you'll show up so I don't have to worry about backup plans. I wasn't a complete doormat. When she wanted me to drive her to the airport at 4 a.m., I told her to call an Uber because I had a 7 a.m. service call. She got annoyed. Said she didn't feel safe alone at that hour. I offered to pay for the ride instead. She declined and made it sound like I'd failed her. Each time I said no, she'd go silent, then come back with, "Are you seriously doing this right now?" The message was clear. My value was directly tied to my availability. Meanwhile, she dated. A lot. For someone who wasn't looking for a relationship, she cycled through guys like she was trying to set a record. There was David, the accountant from a dating app. Ended after a month when she found out he was still living with his ex-girlfriend, just in separate bedrooms. She called me at 11 p.m., voice shaking. I drove across town to pick her up from the restaurant where she'd been waiting for him to explain himself. He never showed. Before David, there was a startup bro texting his ex the whole time. After David, there was a guy hiding his relationship status. Same pattern every time. She'd fall hard, find out he was trash, crash, and I'd be there. "Tell me you're free tonight. Don't say you're busy." And each time she recovered, she'd say, "Why can't guys treat me like you do?" It's a special kind of torture hearing that, because the answer is right there. It's you, Keegan. You're standing right here. But I never said it. By January, something started shifting. I started noticing how the friendship felt different depending on what she needed. When she was happy with someone new, I barely heard from her. When things fell apart, suddenly I was the first call. I started declining plans more often. Not to punish her, just because I was tired. Will noticed before I did. We were shooting pool at his place one night in February when he said, "You know she's never going to see you that way, right?" I lined up my shot. "I know. Do you, though? Because you've been orbiting this girl for almost a year, and she's still calling you her brother while cycling through dudes who treat her like garbage. You're waiting for something that's never going to happen. And while you wait, you're not looking for something that actually could." I didn't have a good response because he wasn't wrong. There's a whole city of women out there who might actually want to date you. Might be worth exploring. I sank the 8 ball, won the game, decided maybe he had a point. 3 weeks later, I met Cassie, county courthouse. Not exactly romantic, but life doesn't care about settings. I was there pulling permits for a historic preservation project, fire suppression overhaul, 14 forms, bureaucratic nightmare. Cassie was the court clerk processing my application. When she saw my stack of papers, half printed wrong, half filled out incorrectly, she laughed. Not mockingly, sympathetically. First time doing a commercial renovation permit? That obvious? You've got 6 forms here that are duplicates, and you're missing the one that actually matters. She slid a sheet across. Fill this out, attach it to that one, toss the rest. Save yourself 3 hours. Dark hair pulled back, eyes that said, I've seen it all and I'm not impressed. Zero drama vibes. I was into it. Can I buy you coffee as a thank you? I asked before I could overthink it. She considered it. Actually considered it. I take lunch at 12:30. Make it then instead. Deal. That lunch turned into 2 hours. My boss called twice. I sent both to voicemail. Cassie was originally from Cincinnati, moved to Columbus after a broken engagement. Some guy who cheated and then blamed her for not being emotionally available enough. He said I worked too much, she explained. Code for I wasn't home enough to notice when he had other people over. She'd moved to Columbus not knowing a single person and rebuilt from scratch. No self-pity, no poor me energy. She wasn't looking for someone to save her. She'd figured her own stuff out. I spent 2 years being someone's emotional support animal, she said. Now I only date people who actually want to date me. Something about the way she said it hit me right in the chest. Like she just described my last year in one sentence. We started seeing each other. Coffee turned into dinner, turned into weekends. Just 2 adults who enjoyed each other's company and were honest about what that meant. She told me on our 3rd date that she liked me and wanted to see where things went. No games. No mixed signals. No being told I was like a brother while she scanned the room for better options. After a month, it was official. Cassie was my girlfriend. And for the first time in almost a year, I felt like I was building something instead of waiting for something to be given to me. I didn't tell Allie right away about Cassie. Not because I was hiding it, but because we'd naturally drifted apart as I'd started pulling back. She'd noticed the reduced availability and had been cold about it, which honestly made the distance easier to maintain. I was busy. She was busy. We weren't seeing each other as much. When I finally mentioned it during a coffee meetup in late March, she'd texted repeatedly asking why I'd been so distant. Her reaction was immediate and strange. Wait, you're dating someone? Since when? About a month. A month? She set down her cup like I'd told her someone died. And you didn't tell me? I'm telling you now. But you don't make moves without telling me. That's our thing. She looked genuinely wounded, which I hadn't expected. We are close. I've just been busy with the new relationship and work and everything. Too busy to tell your best friend that your whole life changed? It's not my whole life. It's just dating someone. I wasn't keeping secrets. I just hadn't gotten around to mentioning it. How did you meet? I was pulling permits for a job. She works at the courthouse. And she just asked you out? I asked her. She said yes. Allie's face did something I'd never seen before. This quick flash of something between surprise and irritation, covered up by a fake smile, like she was trying to reset her face before I could read it. So you're not making this a real thing, right? Because that's a lot. She did not sound happy for me. She sounded like someone who just found out their backup generator had been sold without notice and was trying to figure out what that meant for future power outages. Allie insisted on meeting Cassie. I have to vet whoever's taking up my brother's time, she said, and the way she emphasized brother made it sound less like a term of endearment and more like she was marking her territory. We scheduled brunch for the following Saturday. Nice place downtown called Harper's Table. White tablecloths, bottomless pancakes, an atmosphere that suggested people having pleasant, civilized conversations about pleasant, civilized topics. Allie showed up looking like she was attending a job interview for a magazine. Full makeup at 10 a.m., carefully selected outfit that probably took 2 hours to assemble, jewelry I'd never seen before, the whole production. Cassie showed up in jeans and a nice sweater, looking exactly like herself. The difference was obvious, and definitely on purpose. So you're the reason he's been hard to reach. Cute. Allie's smile was cranked up to wattage that could power a small building. Likewise, Cassie said. He talks about you a lot. He usually runs stuff by me. I'm basically his filter. It keeps him from making dumb choices. Allie turned to me with this look that was clearly meant to establish something. Ownership, history, priority. We've known each other over a year, I said, trying to keep things neutral. The best year, Allie added. Remember when we went to that concert and the power went out? We just sat in the parking lot for 3 hours, talking about everything. That was one of the best nights of my life. I remembered it differently. Mostly I remembered being cold and waiting for her rideshare to show up, while she complained about the venue's incompetence. But okay, the rest of brunch followed a predictable pattern. Every time Cassie tried to engage in normal conversation about work or interests or anything that might establish her as a real person rather than an intruder, Allie would find a way to redirect towards shared memories with me. Inside jokes nobody else could possibly understand, references to things we'd done together, stories where she was the main character and I was her loyal supporting player. Keegan's the most reliable person I know, she announced at one point, out of nowhere. Like, after what David did last summer, Keegan was there within 30 minutes. Didn't even have to ask. He just knew. Cassie's eyebrow went up slightly. That's nice. It's just what we do. We take care of each other. Allie reached over and squeezed my hand across the table, held it there like she was proving a point to HR. No matter what. The subtext was about as subtle as a fire alarm, which professionally speaking I know a lot about. Cassie's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. This wasn't a woman getting to know her friend's new girlfriend. This was a woman marking her territory. When Cassie excused herself to use the restroom, Allie leaned in immediately. She seems safe. You'll get bored. You always circle back. I didn't realize you were tracking my type. I just know you, Keegan. Better than anyone. She shrugged innocently, like this was all friendly observation. I'm looking out for you. I appreciate that. But I didn't, and she knew I didn't. And for the first time, she couldn't pretend otherwise. Cassie came back, and we finished the meal with forced pleasantries. Outside, after Allie had hugged me slightly too long and walked away with one more meaningful look over her shoulder, Cassie turned to me. She has feelings for you? No, she just likes having me available. It's different. Keegan. Cassie's voice was patient but firm. She literally spent 2 hours reminding me that she knew you first and knew you better. That's not how you treat a friend's new relationship. That's how you mark territory. So what do you want me to do about it? Keep your eyes open. Women like her don't handle being replaced gracefully. This isn't over. I should have listened more carefully. The next 3 months were what happens when a woman realizes she lost her backup plan. Allie started texting more frequently, random check-ins that felt like surveillance. Where are you? Who are you with? Don't ignore me. Old photos from things we'd done. Remember this? Messages arriving at 11 p.m. when she probably knew I'd be with Cassie. Comments on every single thing I posted online. Always something that established history or intimacy. I remember when you first got that shirt, we were at the mall for like 3 hours. After a week of this, I sent her a clear message. Stop posting old pictures of us. Stop with the 11 p.m. texts. I'm with Cassie now. Respect that, or we're done talking. She sent back, seriously? After everything I've done for you? And then went nuclear quiet. She didn't get it. She started showing up at places I mentioned being. I'd tell Will I was grabbing dinner at this spot in the short north, and suddenly Allie would walk in. I figured you'd be here. You're predictable. 3 times in 2 weeks. I pulled Will aside and said, stop sharing my plans with her. I mean it. He looked uncomfortable but agreed. Then came the social media campaign. Old photos of us together, captioned with things like, missing my favorite human, and nobody gets me like this one. All carefully timed for maximum visibility, usually right after I'd post something with Cassie. I blocked her. Didn't announce it, didn't explain it, just blocked. She made a second account to check if I'd really done it. I blocked that one too. Things escalated at Will's summer barbecue in early July. Same annual gathering, nothing fancy. Allie showed up uninvited. Nobody had told her about it, but she'd seen something on someone's Instagram story and just appeared with a casserole dish like she'd been expected all along. She spent the entire afternoon positioning herself near me, touching my arm when she talked, laughing too loud at things I said, calling me her Keegan to other people like I was a possession rather than a person. Cassie was there, watching it all with increasingly cold eyes. At one point, Allie started telling a story about a camping trip we'd supposedly taken the previous fall. A trip that never happened. Complete fiction she invented on the spot, designed to make Cassie feel like an outsider who'd missed the good times. I pulled Allie aside by the garage, away from everyone else. What are you doing? Having fun at a party. What are you doing? That camping trip didn't happen. You're making things up. It happened. You're not going to embarrass me in front of her by pretending you forgot. You're making Cassie uncomfortable on purpose. And you're touching me constantly. Stop. Her face hardened slightly. Then maybe Cassie should get over herself. You had a life before her. I'm part of that life. If she can't handle it, that's her problem. Allie, I'm done being polite about this. Done being polite? Her voice dropped. You know what your problem is? You found someone boring and stable, and now you're pretending that's what you always wanted. But I know you, Keegan. Better than she ever will. You don't know me at all. You know the version of me that was stupid enough to wait around hoping you'd change your mind. Silence. I waited for you for almost a year, I continued. I was available every time you called, and you kept me exactly where you wanted me. Close enough to need, but not close enough to want. That's done now. Don't contact me again. I walked away. Will watched the whole thing from across the yard. He gave me a small nod. First time he'd ever looked at me like I'd finally figured something out. And 2 weeks later, she showed up at my job site. I was doing an inspection at a new office building downtown, badge in security, sign-in sheets, visitor logs, the whole 9 yards. The kind of building where they take safety protocols seriously because the tenants include a law firm and a financial services company. I'm in the mechanical room on the 4th floor, 40 feet up on a scissor lift checking pressure gauges on the main riser, when the site foreman radios me. Keegan, there's a woman at the front desk saying she's your sister. Says it's a family emergency. My blood went cold. I don't have a sister. I walked out to find Allie standing in the lobby, looking panicked in a way that was obviously rehearsed. The second she saw me, she rushed over and grabbed my arm. Keegan, thank God. I need to talk to you. It's important. The security guard was watching. The receptionist was watching. The foreman was definitely watching. I could feel my professional reputation shrinking in real time. There's no emergency, I said, keeping my voice flat. She's not my sister. She's nobody. Keegan, please. You need to leave. Now, or I'm calling the police. The security guard stepped forward. Ma'am, you need to go. She looked at me with this expression of wounded betrayal, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. Like showing up at my workplace under false pretenses was a reasonable thing that reasonable people did. You don't get to demote me because you found someone new, she said quietly. I used to be stupid about a lot of things. Leave. Security escorted her out, but she stopped at the door and turned back. You're an opportunistic jerk, she spat. You should try harder to get me instead of settling for some courthouse nobody. Then louder, for everyone to hear. You should have earned me. You got lazy. Now you're panicking. I didn't respond. The security guard put his hand on her arm and she shook it off, walked out on her own. I had to fill out an incident report. The foreman pulled me into his office afterward and asked what the heck that was about. I gave him the short version. He said he'd keep it between us, but the look on his face told me he'd be watching closer now. The building manager requested I use a different entrance for the rest of the project. That night I told Cassie everything. She listened without interrupting, then said, She's escalating. This isn't going to stop on its own. We need to make sure we have this on record. She sat me down and made me walk through every incident while she typed. Dates, times, what happened, who saw it. Built the whole thing into a spreadsheet with timestamps and evidence links. When I started spiraling about how crazy this all was, she just said, focus, one thing at a time. That's Cassie. No drama, just solutions. I was wrong about that too. 3 weeks later, I got arrested. It started with a phone call. A detective from Columbus PD said they had recordings and caller ID hits tied to my name. A formal complaint had been filed. He asked if I could come down to the station to clear something up. Made it sound routine. Just some questions. I walked in at 10 a.m. They took my phone immediately. Standard procedure, they said. Led me to an interview room instead of a regular desk. The detective sat across from me with a folder thick enough to be intimidating. We just need your side of things, he said. But his tone wasn't curious. It was already convinced. The charge was interference with emergency communications. According to the detective, someone had been making repeated calls to the police department's non-emergency line over the past 2 weeks. Dozens of calls, hang-ups, heavy breathing, fake wellness check requests, wasted resources. All of them had displayed my landline number on caller ID. I didn't even use my landline anymore. It came with the apartment, and I'd kept it active for emergencies, but I couldn't remember the last time I'd actually dialed out on it. There's been a mistake, I said. I haven't made any calls. He slid a paper across the table. They already had a warrant. Signed that morning based on the caller ID evidence and the formal complaint. That's what everyone says. The detective didn't look sympathetic. We'll sort it out. Nobody in that room was treating spoofing like a real possibility yet. They processed me. Fingerprints. Mugshot. The report said I was volatile and fixated, like I was some dude she needed protection from. There were other guys in there who looked like they belonged there. I did not look like I belonged there, which somehow made it worse. The intake officer asked if I had any gang affiliations with the same energy as someone asking about food allergies. The holding cell smelled like industrial cleaner and bad decisions. My phone call went to Will, who got me a criminal defense lawyer. My employer found out because I was supposed to be at a job site by 1 p.m. and just never showed. First time in 4 years. I had a reputation at work. The guy who showed up early, double-checked everything, never missed a call back. My supervisor once said I was the only tech who makes clients specifically request him. Now HR was sending emails about concerning absence and pending review of status. Commercial clients do background checks, government contracts especially. My whole career suddenly balanced on something I didn't do. The lawyer got me released on my own recognizance, but the damage kept spreading. The legal retainer was $1,500 just to get started, $250 an hour after that. My savings account took a hit that would take months to recover from. My company pulled me off a government contract site. Too much liability with a pending charge. They reassigned me to residential work, which paid 40% less. Some of my coworkers stopped making eye contact in the break room. Cassie sat across from me that night, quiet for a long time. Then, I need some space. Just for a week. Just until I can think clearly about all this. That one hurt worse than the arrest. Someone's framing me, I said. I know. I believe you. She grabbed her jacket. But I need to process it. I'll call you. She did call. A week later. But that week was the longest 7 days of my life. Just me, alone, wondering if everything I'd built was collapsing because some woman couldn't handle being told no. My lawyer helped me fight back. We requested detailed call logs from the police department, cross-referenced them with my actual phone records, my work schedule, my location data. For 14 of the 17 calls, I was physically at job sites, documented, signed into buildings with security protocols that logged entry and exit times. One call happened while I was in a team meeting with 6 coworkers. Another happened while I was on a service call 30 miles from my apartment with GPS records from my work vehicle. I also discovered something interesting about my landline account. Someone had called the phone company and by providing enough personal information had requested account details including the full number. The phone company's security was garbage and they couldn't tell me who had called. But someone had been doing homework on my life. The security camera footage sealed it. My apartment building had recently installed cameras after a string of car break-ins. I requested the footage for the nights several calls were made. On 2 separate occasions, between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., the footage showed Allie's car in the visitor parking lot. Not parked normally, just idling, like someone was sitting there, doing something they didn't want to do at home, then leaving. The timestamps matched the call logs within minutes. When my lawyer presented this to the prosecutor, they got very interested in having a conversation with Allie instead of me. The charges against me were dropped 4 days later. Insufficient evidence. Possible third-party involvement, ongoing investigation. Getting my job back took 2 weeks of meetings, a letter from my lawyer, a formal apology from HR that felt about as sincere as a form letter, and one uncomfortable conversation where my supervisor admitted they'd jumped the gun. The government contract was gone, though. Once you're pulled off something like that, they don't invite you back even if you're cleared. But the investigation didn't stop when my charges went away. It shifted targets. The police obtained records from Allie's phone carrier. They found evidence of a burner phone purchased with cash. They found caller ID spoofing software on her laptop when they got a warrant. They found text messages to a friend where she bragged about, "He'll learn you don't just replace me and walk away." Allie was charged with filing false police reports, interference with emergency communications, and criminal harassment, all misdemeanors, but the kind that come with potential jail time, mandatory fines, and a permanent record that would show up on every background check for the rest of her life. She lost her job at the hospital within a week. Turns out healthcare systems don't love employing people with pending criminal cases involving fraud and harassment. Her parents had to hire her a lawyer. I heard her dad had to dip into retirement savings because she'd burned through her own money on legal fees and couldn't make rent. And I hadn't even started my part yet. Some people believe in turning the other cheek. I believe in making sure people choke on the consequences of what they did. She tried to destroy my career, my relationship, and my freedom. The legal system was handling the official punishment. But I wasn't done making sure the consequences stuck. The real revenge was paperwork. I filed for a civil stalking protection order, documented every incident from the social media campaign to the workplace ambush to the framing attempt. The court granted it within 2 weeks. Now, any contact wasn't just creepy, it was criminal. I submitted a restitution packet through my lawyer that went beyond the standard ask. Legal fees, obviously, but also lost wages from when I got reassigned to residential work. Documentation of the government contract I lost, and the income differential for the remaining 8 months of that project. Every dollar I could prove. Her actual legal problems multiplied from there. The criminal charges resulted in a plea deal. No jail time, but 2 years of supervised probation with strict conditions. A permanent criminal record that couldn't be expunged. 120 hours of community service at a domestic violence shelter. Ironic, given what she'd tried to do to me. Court-ordered restitution covering my legal fees. $4,200 paid over 18 months. Every check she wrote had my name on it, and a no-contact order with actual teeth. Any violation meant automatic jail time. For anything restitution didn't cover, my lawyer sent a demand letter threatening civil action. The threat alone was enough. Her parents paid the difference just to make it stop. Another $6,000 for the contract losses. They weren't happy about it. I wasn't trying to make them happy. The background check reality hit her fast. Healthcare, locked out, anything involving patient info, billing systems, or HIPAA compliance was off the table permanently. Finance, same problem. Admin work at any company that handles sensitive data? Nope. She'd basically disqualified herself from every job she'd ever been trained for. She had to move back in with her parents because she couldn't afford rent without a job, and her credit was destroyed. I heard through the grapevine that she tried to get a fresh start at a medical supply company. Entry level, nothing fancy. Made it through 2 interviews. Then her former supervisor from the hospital showed up for a conference at the same building. Recognized her in the lobby. Word got around. Job offer disappeared. Last I heard, she was working retail at a home goods store, folding towels for $12 an hour. Choices have receipts. Hers were adding up. But I wasn't quite done adding to her tab. See, there's legal revenge, which feels good in a grown-up, I did this by the book kind of way. And then there's petty revenge, which is satisfying in a way that makes you laugh every time you think about it for the rest of your life. I decided Allie deserved both. One night I was sitting on the couch, half watching some reality show while Cassie read, and I had a thought. Allie had weaponized my contact information against me. Seemed only fair to return the favor. Not illegally. Nothing that would violate the no contact order. Just creatively. Her parents' address was public record now, thanks to all the court filings. And the internet is full of organizations that are absolutely thrilled to spread the good word to anyone who might be interested in receiving it. I signed her up for everything. Jehovah's Witnesses? Check the box for, please visit me to discuss spiritual matters. Mormons? Requested a personal consultation about the Book of Mormon. Scientology? Oh, those guys are persistent. I requested their free personality test on her behalf and indicated she was very interested in learning more about becoming clear. Local Baptist churches running outreach programs, a few Catholic parishes with active evangelism, some Buddhist meditation center that sends weekly newsletters, a Hare Krishna temple that apparently still does door-to-door visits in Ohio. I used burner emails, and a VPN, obviously. I'm not an amateur. Within 2 weeks, I heard through the grapevine that her parents' doorbell had become a revolving door of spiritual enlightenment. 2 young guys in white shirts and ties showed up on a Tuesday, asking to speak with Allie about her eternal salvation. A group of very enthusiastic ladies from a local church arrived with pamphlets about their women's Bible study. Someone left a copy of Dianetics in the mailbox with a handwritten note saying they looked forward to meeting her. Her dad, a guy who apparently just wanted to watch ESPN in peace during his retirement, was losing his mind. Every time he answered the door, it was another smiling face asking if Allie had a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, or if she'd considered that the truth might be found in the teachings of L. Ron Hubbard. The Scientologists were the real MVPs, though. Once you're on their list, you're on it forever. They called, they mailed, they showed up. They do not take not interested for an answer. It's like signing someone up for the world's most aggressive book club, except instead of romance novels, it's e-meters and billion-year contracts. The best part? There was nothing illegal about any of it. I wasn't contacting her. I was just sharing her information with people who wanted to help her find peace and meaning in her life. Very thoughtful of me, really. Some might even call it generous. Her mom eventually posted on Nextdoor asking how to get removed from religious solicitation lists. The comments were not helpful. Someone suggested she try answering the door naked. Someone else said the only way to stop Scientologists is to die, and even then they might try to audit your thetan. Will showed me the post. I laughed so hard I almost choked on my drink. Was it mature? No. Was it necessary? Also no. Did it make me stupid happy every time I pictured her trying to explain to another group of smiling missionaries that she didn't actually want to talk about Jesus? Absolutely. Weeks passed. I heard updates through the grapevine but didn't engage directly. Cassie and I were building something real. We moved in together in October. Small apartment, too many plants because she kept buying clearance ones to save them, not enough closet space, and perpetual arguments about the thermostat. Perfect. Then, 8 months after the arrest, Allie showed up at my door. I almost didn't recognize her. She'd lost weight, but not in a healthy way. The kind of weight loss that makes clothes hang wrong and cheekbones look sharp. Her hair was shorter, grayer than I remembered. The makeup that used to be perfect was gone. Everything about her looked like life had been beating her down and winning. Can we talk? Her voice was barely above a whisper. I didn't say anything. I pulled out my phone and started recording. I apologized. So you can stop doing this to me now. I kept recording, stepped back inside the doorway. You owe me closure. I didn't come here to be treated like a criminal. I dialed 911. Put it on speaker. 911, what's your emergency? I need to report a protection order violation. The subject is currently at my residence. I gave the address, kept my voice flat. I'm documenting the encounter. Allie's face went white. She hadn't thought about that. She'd been so focused on whatever closure she thought she'd get that she'd forgotten she was risking jail time just by standing on my doorstep. Keegan, please. You should leave. They'll be here in about 4 minutes. She practically ran to her car and peeled out of the lot. I didn't chase, didn't argue, just stayed on the line with dispatch and provided the plate number and direction of travel. The cops found her 2 blocks away, pulled over and crying. They cuffed her in front of a family loading groceries into their minivan. The protection order violation triggered an automatic probation review. Her lawyer called the prosecutor begging for leniency. Didn't help. Her probation officer added conditions, and her lawyer looked like he aged a decade in one hearing. I didn't have to do anything else. Just let the system crush her again. I went back inside where Cassie was making dinner. She looked up when I walked in. Who was that? Nobody. She nodded, went back to stirring. Didn't push it. That's what I love about her. And this was finished. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true. My parents canceled my 16th birthday, so my sister wouldn't feel left out. I stayed quiet. I moved away, and no one even noticed. Years later, my sister stole their savings and left them bankrupt. They came asking for help. I wasn't their son anymore. Hey Reddit, this one's been eating at me for a while, so I'm finally putting it down. Fair warning, this gets dark and takes a minute to tell, but the ending that went down a few months ago made the whole thing worth it. I'm 22 now. This story starts when I was 16, living in suburban Phoenix with my parents and my sister Lily. She's 6 years older than me, 28 now, and she's been the family princess since the day she was born. Not in a cute way either, in the kind of way that makes servers at restaurants exchange looks when she starts her routine. Dad owns a mid-size HVAC company that handles commercial contracts and high-end residential installs. Mom works pharmaceutical sales, pulling down decent commission when she actually focuses. Combined, they were bringing in around $180,000 a year. We lived in a gated community with the pool, the landscaping, the whole suburban Phoenix package. Should have been enough for 2 kids to grow up comfortable and stable. Should have been. Lily figured out early that drama got results. I'm talking calculated meltdowns. The kind where she'd work herself up to hyperventilating if she didn't get what she wanted. Threatening to hurt herself became her go-to move. By the time I was in middle school, my parents treated every tantrum like a 5-alarm fire that required the entire family to stop functioning until she calmed down. The double standards weren't even subtle. She got a brand new Lexus for her 16th birthday, pearl white with custom leather interior that cost more than most people's yearly salary. I got Dad's old work truck with 190,000 miles and a check engine light that had been on since 2019. When she crashed that Lexus texting and driving, Dad bought her an even newer model. When I got a speeding ticket for going 7 over, I got grounded for a month and had to pay the fine plus an extra $200 Dad added as a lesson. When she got arrested for shoplifting at a mall, I was the one who picked her up at 2 in the morning because Mom and Dad were too embarrassed to face the situation. I spent months tutoring her through math classes she kept failing, while my own requests for help got denied. It was always like that. Big checks for her, lectures for me. The thing is, I was the one actually keeping the house running while she created chaos. While Lily was out partying and treating her 6 years of on and off community college like an extended vacation, I was maintaining a 3.9 GPA, working 25 hours a week at an automotive parts store, and handling half the adult shit that should have been their job. Bills, groceries, Dad's paperwork, all of it. My parents had a script for all of it. Lily's more sensitive and needs extra support. You're naturally responsible and mature for your age. She's still finding herself. You're strong enough to handle disappointment. Every time I succeeded at something, it was expected and barely acknowledged. Every time Lily failed at something, it became this huge crisis where everything had to stop. When she finally finished community college 2 years late, the house was full of celebration, and I got handed cleanup duty after the party. I kept thinking it would change, that eventually they'd see I was putting in work and deserved some recognition, that my 16th birthday would be different, that they'd make it special because I'd been carrying so much weight for so long. I was wrong. 2 weeks before my 16th birthday, I asked if we could do something nice. Nothing crazy, just family and a few friends, maybe 15 people, backyard set up with a grill and music. I even offered to help pay for it with money from my job at the parts store. Mom and Dad seemed into the idea at first. We sent out invitations, planned the menu, ordered a cake. Then 3 days before the party, Lily found out her best friend was throwing a pool party the same day. She came home and immediately started her routine about feeling left out, and how having my party would make her feel excluded from her own family. How it would mess with her anxiety about not being included. How she needed the house to be calm that weekend, because she was dealing with some friendship drama. Mom caved first. She has a point, sweetie. Your sister's going through a difficult time socially. Maybe we should reschedule so she doesn't feel isolated. Dad backed her up without even hearing my side. Your sister needs support right now. You're mature enough to understand. We'll do something next weekend. I didn't argue, didn't raise my voice, just said okay and went to my room. That Saturday, the day that should have been my party, they took Lily shopping to cheer her up. Dropped about $800 on new clothes to help her feel better about her friendship situation. I worked my shift at the parts store and came home to an empty house. Lily's shopping bags were spread across the kitchen counter. The birthday cake I'd ordered was still sitting in the fridge, untouched, with my name on it in blue frosting. That was the moment. Not a blow-up, just a cold decision I made and never unmade. I'm leaving the day I turn 18. The next day I called everyone and canceled. Made up some excuse about being sick. My best friend Jordan could tell something was off but didn't push it. My biology teacher who I'd invited seemed concerned, but I brushed it off. The humiliation of canceling my own birthday party because my 22-year-old sister might feel left out was something I couldn't even admit out loud. On my actual 16th birthday, nobody mentioned it. Not at breakfast, not at dinner. Lily spent the day at the pool posting selfies. Mom was on a sales call until 8. Dad was at a job site. I worked my shift at the parts store, came home, and went to bed. That was it. My friend Jordan's mom noticed first. She pulled me aside at their house one weekend and said something I'll never forget. They treat you like an employee, not a son. You know that's not normal, right? I laughed it off at the time, but the words stuck. Because she was right. Turns out I wasn't the son. I was the software that kept everything running. Age 16 to 18 was a weird time. On the surface, everything looked normal. I went to school, worked my shifts, helped around the house, kept my grades up, but internally, I'd flipped a switch. I wasn't trying to be seen anymore. I was planning my way out. I opened a bank account at a different bank than my parents used. Every paycheck went straight to savings, except for the bare minimum for gas and expenses. I kept my phone bill separate, made sure all my important documents were in my room, started building credit with a secured card from the parts store's credit union program. My boss at the automotive shop, a guy named Martinez, noticed something had changed in me. I'd always been reliable, but now I was operating at a different level. I picked up every shift I could get, learned inventory systems, started studying for ASE certifications in my spare time. When he offered me assistant manager duties at 17, I took it, and the raise that came with it. Martinez was the first adult who treated me like being good at my job, actually got me something instead of just more work. When I casually mentioned my family situation one slow afternoon, he didn't pry. Just said if I ever needed anything, extra hours or a reference for housing, I should ask. That conversation mattered more than he probably realized. The favoritism at home kept escalating, but I'd stopped caring, stopped expecting anything different. Instead, I focused on what I could control. Saved aggressively, studied hard, worked my hours, kept my head down. Started doing less around the house too, on purpose. Stopped reminding Dad about bill due dates. Stopped organizing Mom's client follow-up spreadsheets. Stopped covering for Lily's messes. I also did something else that turned out to be critical. Started monitoring my credit through one of those free services. Froze my credit at all 3 bureaus when I turned 17. With Lily's history of financial chaos and access to family documents, I wasn't taking chances. That decision saved me later. By the time my 18th birthday was coming up, I had about $8,000 saved. A guaranteed admission to Arizona State with partial scholarships, a solid work history, and an apartment already lined up with 2 guys from school. I'd been moving small amounts of my stuff out for weeks. Important documents, winter clothes, electronics, anything that mattered. My room was getting emptier, but nobody noticed because nobody came in there anyway. My 18th birthday was on a Wednesday. I had to work the morning shift at the parts store. Woke up, got dressed, walked past Dad having coffee in the kitchen. He asked me to stop by the supply warehouse on my way home and grab some filters he needed for a job. Didn't say happy birthday. Didn't acknowledge the date at all. Mom was already gone for a sales call. Lily was still asleep at 9 in the morning. I worked my shift. Martinez came up to me mid-morning with a card from the shop guys and a $50 gift card to a steakhouse. Said happy birthday, told me to take the rest of the day off. I almost lost it right there in the stockroom, but held it together. Went home around 2. Dad was at a job site. Mom texted that she'd be late. Client dinner. Lily was on the couch watching reality TV. She looked up when I walked in and asked if I could order food later, because she was hungry and didn't feel like going out. Didn't ask why I was home early. Didn't say happy birthday. Didn't acknowledge me beyond asking for food. I walked into my room and locked the door. Pulled out the 3 duffel bags and 2 boxes I'd staged in my closet. Packed up the rest of my stuff piece by piece. Clothes, laptop, documents, photos I actually cared about. Unplugged the mini fridge I'd bought myself. Wrapped it in a blanket. Took my tools from the garage, the ones I'd bought with my own money that Dad kept borrowing. Wrote a note and left it on my bed with the house key. Since my birthdays don't seem to matter, and my role here is apparently unpaid maintenance staff, I'm removing myself from the situation. I'm not angry. I'm unavailable. Don't contact me unless you're ready to acknowledge how you've treated me for 18 years. I'll be fine. I've been taking care of myself anyway. Loaded my truck in 3 trips. Walked through the house one last time. Lily was still on the couch, hadn't moved. I closed the front door quietly behind me and drove to my new apartment across town. The relief was immediate and overwhelming. For the first time in my life, I was making a decision purely for me. No compromise, no consideration for their convenience, no trying to keep the peace. Just me choosing myself. The first few months on my own were harder than I expected, but I never once regretted leaving. The apartment was a decent 3-bedroom split with 2 guys from school who were hardly ever home. My share of rent was $650 plus utilities, tight on $2,100 a month, but doable if I stayed disciplined. I had to relearn everything. Meal prepping Sundays with chicken and rice, buying store-brand everything, setting reminders for bills because one missed payment could wreck my budget. And when something broke, it was on me. My truck needed new brake pads right before rent was due, so I spent a Saturday in 105-degree heat replacing them myself with a YouTube tutorial and bloody knuckles. That became normal. Fix it or go without. What hit hardest wasn't the struggle. It was the silence. I expected something. Anger, guilt, a half-assed apology. Anything that proved I'd mattered. But days passed. Then weeks. My room was empty. My truck gone. A note left on my bed. And still nothing. I checked my phone constantly at first, hating myself for it, waiting for a guilt-trip voicemail or an angry text. Instead, radio silence. It confirmed what I'd always suspected. I wasn't a son. I was a function. And functions don't get missed. They just get absorbed back into the system with slightly more chaos. Jordan kept me sane. He never pushed, just made sure I wasn't drowning in my own head. His family had me over for dinners, normal dinners, where people asked about your day because they actually cared. His mom packed me leftovers like it was routine. Work became my anchor. Martinez bumped me up to assistant manager. 32 steady hours, health insurance, responsibility that actually meant something. I started learning the business side, building relationships with regular customers, people who appreciated effort instead of exploiting it. Then classes at Arizona State started. Full course load plus work. Brutal. Some weeks were 5 hours of sleep and gas station caffeine. One night I had a fever of 102 and still dragged myself into work because rent doesn't care if you're dying. At 3 in the morning that night, sitting on the bathroom floor shivering, I wondered if I'd made a mistake. If surviving that house would have been easier than this. Then I remembered my 16th birthday, watching them take Vanessa shopping while my cake sat untouched in the fridge. That snapped me back. I got up, took more meds, slept 2 hours, and went to work. Closest I came to breaking. But there were wins. Rent paid on time. An emergency fund slowly growing. My credit score climbing. An A on a college exam. The first time I realized I was actually good at this stuff when I wasn't carrying a collapsing family on my back. Around month 3, I hit a milestone. Emergency fund at 500. Grades solid. Bills handled. So I bought myself something small but huge to me. A used PlayStation 4 for $120. 2 controllers, a couple games. I set it up in my room and just stared at it for a second. It was the first thing I bought just because I wanted it. Not a tool, not survival, just joy. Played for an hour before homework. It felt like proof I wasn't sinking. 6 months in, I finally had a rhythm. Work, school, sleep, repeat. Simple, stable. The loneliness was still there, but softer, manageable. I stopped checking my phone for messages that were never coming. And then, in January, I met Clem. Clem was working the register at a coffee shop near campus that I'd started going to between classes. We'd made small talk a few times, nothing serious, but one day she noticed I was studying financial statements and asked if I was in the business program. Turned out she was too. Different schedule, but same major. We started meeting up to study. Study sessions turned into coffee dates. Coffee dates turned into actual dates. She was easy to be around. Didn't need me to perform or prove anything, just liked me for who I was. When I eventually told her the basics of my family situation, She didn't make a big deal out of it. Just said that sounded rough and she was glad I got out. No pity, no drama, just acknowledgement. 3 months into dating, she invited me to dinner with her family. I was nervous as hell. Her parents lived in Mesa, about 30 minutes out. Normal house, normal neighborhood, her mom taught elementary school, and her dad worked for the city water department. Solid middle class, nothing flashy. Her brother Alvin was there too. 2 years older than Clem, worked as a welder into motorcycles and old trucks. He gave me the big brother evaluation when we met, sizing me up to see if I was good enough for his sister. I kept my answers short and honest. Didn't try to impress him, used a little deadpan humor when he tested me about my old truck. That got a laugh. But what really got me was how her parents treated me. They asked about my classes and actually remembered details from week to week. Asked about work, about my plans after graduation. Her mom kept offering more food, making sure I had enough. Her dad told stories about when he was in college working full-time. Normal stuff, but to me it felt surreal. At the end of the night, Alvin pulled me aside while everyone else was in the kitchen. Said he'd heard bits about my situation from Clem. Nothing detailed, but enough to know I'd been on my own for a while. Then he said something I didn't expect. You ever mess with motorcycles? Got a project bike in my garage. Could use another set of hands if you're interested. I'd always been into mechanical stuff, but never had the time or space to actually work on anything. I told him, yeah, I'd be down. Every Saturday morning, I'd head to Cam's place, and we'd work on his project. A beat-up 1984 Honda Nighthawk 650 he'd picked up for $800. The thing barely ran. Needed everything. Alvin was patient. Never made me feel stupid for asking basic questions. Showed me how to read a service manual, how to organize tools, how to work through problems the right way. We started simple. Oil, battery, fluids. The carburetor took us 3 Saturdays to get right. Then came the electrical system where the previous owner had hacked everything. We spent weeks tracing wires, replacing connectors, fixing grounds. The work itself was satisfying, but what really mattered was the time. Alvin and I would wrench for a few hours. He'd order pizza around noon. We'd eat sitting on his garage floor talking about nothing important. Never brought up my family situation unless I did first. Just treated me like a person worth being around. After 4 months, we got the Nighthawk running. Alvin kicked it over and the engine fired clean. He took it around the block, came back grinning, then tossed me the keys. Your turn. First time I'd ever ridden a motorcycle. 2-minute crash course on clutch and shifting, then I rolled out of his driveway. The rush of that machine responding to me, something we'd built with our own hands, was unreal. Came back 10 minutes later, grinning like an idiot. Alvin just nodded and said good, but it felt like approval I'd never gotten from my actual family. Around this time, I bought my own project. 1982, Yamaha Virago 750 off Craigslist for $600. Rough, neglected, covered in rust. Owner said it ran 2 years ago, but now wouldn't start. Perfect. Alvin helped me load it, and we started working on both bikes. The Virago became mine to figure out with Alvin coaching from the side. Saturday mornings became sacred. Wrench from 9 to 2, then head inside. That's when the PlayStation came into play. I'd started bringing my console over after Alvin mentioned he had a good TV setup. We'd game for a few hours after working on bikes, just decompressing. Started with racing games, then moved into co-op shooters. Just hanging out with zero expectations. That's when I figured out what actually being relaxed felt like. Got to the point where I'd show up with my controller, and Alvin would already have snacks ready. His wife would make lunch for us around noon. We'd eat while taking a break from wrenching, then finish up and transition to gaming. Clem's family became my safety net. Her mom would text me about bringing leftovers to my apartment. Her dad started calling me with random advice about car maintenance or school stuff. And Clem was steady, supportive, never pushed me to move faster than I was ready. One night, about a year into our relationship, Clem and I were at my apartment, and she asked point blank if I'd ever consider marrying her someday. Not a proposal, just a check-in. I said yeah, absolutely. She said good, because her family already considered me one of them, and she wanted to make it official when the time was right. A family I chose, not the one I was stuck with by biology. People who actually gave a shit about me. Age 20 to 22 was when everything clicked. I finished my associate degree, transferred to ASU full-time for my bachelor's in business management. Martinez promoted me to store manager at the parts shop when his district manager spot opened up. Solid salary, benefits, respect from the team. The Yamaha rebuild was finished, running smooth, and I'd started picking up small side work doing motorcycle repairs and flips. Nothing huge, but an extra $400 or $500 a month that went straight to savings. Alvin and I were tight. Saturday mornings wrenching. Saturday nights gaming. He'd started calling me his brother casually, not even making a thing of it. His parents treated me like a son. When I got promoted at work, Clem's mom made a celebration dinner. When I passed a certification exam, her dad took me out for a congratulations breakfast. Clem and I moved in together when I was 21, got a decent one-bedroom closer to campus, split rent, built a life together. She graduated that year and started working as an analyst at a healthcare company. We were both grinding, but it was shared effort, not me carrying someone else's weight. I proposed 6 months later. Nothing fancy, just the two of us at a state park where we'd gone hiking. She said yes before I even finished asking. We planned a small wedding for that fall, just close friends and family. Her parents insisted on helping with costs despite me offering to split it. They said it was what parents do. The wedding was simple. We got married that October, a little over 3 years after I left home. Outdoor venue in Scottsdale, about 60 people. Nothing fancy but everything we wanted. Alvin was my best man. Jordan and a few guys from work stood up with me. Clem's mom cried through the whole ceremony. Her dad shook my hand afterward and said he was proud to call me his son. That broke something in me I didn't know was still broken. We took photos, posted a few to social media with a simple caption. Just married, nothing dramatic. Comments were off because I didn't want to deal with randos, but the photos were public. I found out later through my aunt that mom saw the wedding photos and completely lost it. Not happy for me, furious. Furious that I looked that happy without them. That I'd built this whole life with Clem's family and never once needed them. Panicked about how it made them look to people who knew the real story. She'd been checking my social media for years apparently, keeping tabs, but those wedding photos broke the bullshit story she'd been telling people about me being the unstable one who needed space. I didn't know the full extent of what had been happening with my family until after they showed up, but once I heard the whole thing, it made sense. Once I was out, the stuff I'd been quietly handling didn't explode overnight. It just stopped getting done. Over the next several months, bills went late, mail piled up, paperwork got ignored until it turned into penalties. The house started falling into disrepair. The landscaping went to hell. Weeds took over the yard. And HOA notices started showing up taped to the front door. Neighbors started talking. But the real disaster was Lily. Without me as a buffer, my parents had to deal with her chaos directly for the first time. She dropped out of college, couldn't hold jobs, kept getting arrested. Shoplifting, DUI, more shoplifting. Each arrest meant lawyers, court costs, thousands in fees. That's when they started digging deeper into finances and discovered she'd been stealing from them for years. They didn't catch it because they never looked closely. Statements went paperless, mail piled up, and Lily was helping with errands. About 60 grand she'd straight up stolen, plus another 30,000 in debt she'd racked up in their names by forging documents and using their info. She tried to open something in my name too. Found out later she'd attempted 2 credit cards and a personal loan using my information. All of them bounced because my credit had been frozen since I was 17. Instead of cutting her off, my parents took out a second mortgage to cover everything. Dad borrowed against his business. Mom picked up a second job. Meanwhile, the community found out why I'd left. Parents started avoiding mine. Dad lost business contracts. Mom's pharma career took hits. Then Lily got involved with a cryptocurrency pyramid scheme and transferred 38,000 from their savings in one transaction. Gone within weeks. After that hit, the bottom fell out. Bankruptcy. The house gone. Everything else was just fallout. Dad's business collapsing under the debt, Mom getting demoted and losing her territory, both of them scrambling to stay afloat. They moved into a 900 square foot apartment in a rough neighborhood. Dad ended up working for a competitor doing basic installs. Mom took a third job at a retail store. The pressure destroyed their marriage. After 26 years together, they separated about a year after the bankruptcy. Dad moved in with his brother. Mom was working 60 hours a week just to cover rent. Both looked 10 years older than they should. They'd been planning their approach for weeks after seeing the wedding photos. Tracked me down using public records and social media breadcrumbs. My aunt accidentally mentioned which part store I managed during a conversation with Mom. They looked up the address, scoped it out, then showed up at Cam's place on a Saturday when they knew I'd be there. 4 months after the wedding, on a Saturday morning, I was in Cam's driveway working on a carburetor rebuild for a client bike when a car I didn't recognize pulled up. Older model sedan, dented passenger door. The kind of car you drive when you've sold everything else. Alvin looked up first, then said quietly, "You know these people?" My parents got out. They looked rough. Dad had lost weight, hair more gray, moving stiff like his back was worse. Clothes that didn't fit right, cheaper brands than he used to wear. Mom looked exhausted, older than she should have, dark circles under her eyes, hair showing gray roots she would have covered immediately in the old days. They stood there for a second, like they weren't sure what to do, looking around Cam's garage like they were planning what to say. I didn't stand up, just put down the socket wrench and waited. Alvin stayed where he was, hands still in his work gloves, silent backup. Dad spoke first, trying to sound in control but just sounding desperate. Son, we need to talk. Can we go somewhere private? Kept my voice level. Nope. Anything you need to say, you can say here. Mom's eyes were already watery. We saw your wedding photos. You look so happy. Why didn't you invite us? Her voice broke on the last word. Because you didn't even remember my 16th birthday? Or my 18th? Because you canceled my plans to manage Lily's feelings? Because you never treated me like family, you treated me like staff? Dad got defensive. We made mistakes, we admit that. But we're family. You can't just walk away from family. He said it like biology trumped everything they'd done. I already did. 4 years ago. Been doing fine since. Mom completely butchered Clem's name. Started going into her guilt routine about how they're struggling now, how Lily's having a really hard time, how they need advice and help getting back on their feet. She actually took a step toward the garage like she was planning to come inside. Don't. She froze. I didn't raise my voice, didn't move, just stared until she stepped back. Her face went from fake sympathy to actual shock. Alvin made a slight movement. Not aggressive, just present. Let me get this straight. You ignored me for 4 years. You noticed I was gone and still didn't reach out. Didn't apologize. Didn't even try to contact me until you saw I was doing well. Now you're here asking for help because Lily destroyed your finances and you can't fix it without me. Dad's face went red. That's not fair. We did our best with difficult circumstances. Your best was canceling my birthday at 16 because Lily might feel left out. Your best was using me for free labor while spending thousands on her failures. Your best was forgetting I existed the day I turned 18. Mom started crying harder. We know we failed you. We're sorry. But you're successful now. You have a good life. Can't you find it in your heart to help us? We're desperate. Your desperation isn't my problem. The bluntness landed hard. Dad tried another angle. After everything we did for you, raising you, feeding you, giving you a home, let's be clear. I raised myself, fed myself with money I earned. You gave me a room and I paid for it by managing your life and cleaning up your mistakes. You don't get credit for the bare minimum. Alvin finally spoke. Think you guys should leave? Dad looked at him like he'd just noticed Alvin was there. Who the hell are you? I'm his brother. Alvin said it simple and firm. Mom looked between me and Cam, trying to process it. You replaced us. I found people who actually showed up. That's all it is. Mom tried once more. If you won't help financially, at least talk to us. Meet with us regularly. Let us be part of your life again. We're your parents. You had 18 years to be parents. You chose Lily every single time. You don't get to show up now asking for access just because everything collapsed. Dad's voice rose. You're being cruel. I'm done. Here's the deal. You contact me only through my aunt, and only for actual emergencies. You don't show up at my home. You don't show up at my work. You don't contact my wife. If you violate any of that, I'll make this legal. Trespass warning, police reports, whatever I have to do. You don't get to guilt trip me about family after proving for 18 years that I wasn't family to you. Mom looked broken. Please don't do this. We've lost everything. You lost everything because you enabled Lily into being a 28-year-old child who commits fraud. That's your consequence, not mine. I already paid what I owed this family. I'm done. Alvin moved between me and my parents, not aggressive, just making it clear this was done. Dad started to say something else, but Alvin cut him off. You heard him. Time to go. They stood there another few seconds, maybe hoping I'd crack, but I just stared back with nothing. Eventually, they turned and got back in their car, drove away. After they left, I pulled out my phone and texted my aunt, documenting this. My parents showed up at my friend's house unannounced. If they attempt contact again outside emergencies, I'm filing a trespass warning and restraining order. Need you to confirm you received this message, she texted back immediately. Received. I'm sorry they did that. They asked me where you worked and I mentioned the store without thinking. I didn't know they'd actually show up. I told her it was okay, not her fault, but to please not share any information about me going forward. Monday morning, I called the parts store and briefed the assistant manager on the situation, gave him photos of my parents from social media, told him if they showed up asking for me to have them removed and call the police if they refused. He took it seriously, made notes, said he'd let the rest of the team know. Alvin waited until I put the phone away, then looked at me. You good? Yeah. I sat back down, picked up the socket wrench. I'm good. We worked in silence for a few minutes. My hands were steady. The confrontation had been easier than I expected. Maybe because I'd had 4 years to prepare for it, or maybe because I genuinely didn't need them anymore. Alvin eventually broke the silence. For what it's worth, you handled that perfect. Had 4 years to practice. We finished the car rebuild, cleaned up, went inside. Clem had seen the car from the window and texted asking if I was okay. Told her I was fine. Explained what happened. She came over after work and we ate together. Normal Saturday evening. The confrontation with my parents already felt like it happened to someone else. That night, lying in bed with Clem, she asked me if I felt bad about how I'd handled it. I thought about it honestly. No, they didn't want me. They wanted what I could do for them. She squeezed my hand. Good. You deserve better. Yeah, I do. The weeks after were quiet. No contact through my aunt. No surprise visits. Then about 2 months later, I got a call from an unknown number while closing up the parts store. Against my better judgment, I answered. It was Lily. Haven't heard her voice in over 4 years. She sounded different, shakier, started talking fast about being in therapy now, realizing how toxic she was, how she destroyed everyone's lives, including mine. Said she was working on accountability and making amends. The whole speech sounded rehearsed. I let her finish. Then I asked one question. Are mom and dad paying for this therapy? She hesitated. Yeah, but that's not the point. I'm actually trying to change. The point is you're 28 years old and still depending on them to fund your recovery from the damage you caused. You're apologizing while actively continuing the same pattern. She tried to argue, but I cut her off. You want to make amends? Get a full-time job. Move into your own place. Pay mom and dad back every dollar you stole. When you've done that for a year straight without their support, call me back. Until then, this apology is just more of you wanting credit for the bare minimum. She started crying, said I was being unfair. I told her trying doesn't count when you're doing it on someone else's dime. Then I hung up. Clem asked about it when I got home. I explained the call. She asked if I felt bad. I don't. Lily's apology wasn't about making things right. It was about making herself feel better. That was 3 months ago. And after that, nothing. No follow-up. No effort. They tried the guilt angle, the desperation angle, the apology angle. None of it worked because I'm not the same kid they used to manipulate. Last Saturday, Alvin and I finished another project, a 1979 Honda CB750 we'd been restoring for 8 months. Deep blue paint, engine running perfect. We took it for a test ride, Arizona highways at sunset. Nothing but open road and a machine we built with our own hands. When we got back to his place, we parked the bikes and headed inside. His wife had made dinner, Clem came over, and we all ate together. After dinner, Alvin and I fired up the PlayStation and ran a few matches. Normal Saturday. Peace. This is what winning looks like. Not some dramatic revenge or reconciliation. Just a normal evening with people who value you. Building a life that doesn't include chaos or manipulation. My parents chose Lily over me for 18 years. They taught me I didn't matter. I learned the lesson and applied it back. They wanted access. I chose peace. Guys, we are so close to hit 100,000 subscribers on this channel. If you are not subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. It really helps hit that 100,000 mark. Thanks for making this dream come true.